family. My name is Vicki Dillard for African Diaspora News Channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to give the video a big thumbs up, and share. This essentially sends out notifications so that more folks will know that we're here. And how many of you all know that's so important that we're proactive when it comes down to independent Black grassroots media? Yes, Black grassroots Black media, that is so important because we speak to your issues. And I know you've certainly come to the conclusion that we're the counter voice to the oppressive classes media apparatus, which is very extensive, and it is funded by billions and billions of dollars, and it is a global machine. So for that, we say thank you so very much, beloved. You allowing us to see our message, and boy, are we making a difference. Listen, family, I discussed this some time ago on my platform, but I had to talk about it here because this was making the rounds in the news for some time, some days ago. And that is the fact that MSNBC's Joy Reid, chief LOM member, LOM, that's a whole different type of sorority of certain Black women that are strategically put on certain types of platforms to support white supremacy and at the same time criticize and try to silence Black folks. Now, I want you to watch this clip of Joy Reid recently, a statement that she made. Watch this.
You're going to look real crazy being on the other side of that line, particularly as a person of color, but really as anyone who claims to have any connection to the culture. You're going to look real weird and real lonely on that side.
Okay, did you hear that, family? She made it very clear to melanated Black folks that if we don't vote for Kamala Harris, if we're not Democratic, she said, if we're not on the other side, if we are end up being on the other side, I mean the Republican side, she said, we're going to look real crazy. And then she said, we're going to look real weird. Now, I want to remind you of what something Kamala Harris said when she initially ran for office a few years ago. Watch this clip.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination, segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, Black people have not. Any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No.
Now, this is Kamala telling you out of her own mouth she has no intentions of doing anything specifically for Black folks. Now, may I remind you, I did an extensive breakdown of her very anti-Black, terrible, and horrific record as the DA for San Francisco, as well as the Attorney General for the entire state of California. Right here on this channel, if you look under the lives, you will see some days ago I did that. Be sure to watch that because I'll give extensive breakdowns and I give many references so that you can have a lot of receipts, yes? And I substantiate this notion that Kamala Harris is anti-Black in terms of her policies. We don't need to just go with what they're trying to say. I want you to have the evidence of her long record. So be sure to check that out. I want to remind you that when she was Attorney General and the Supreme Court ordered that the state of California reduce its prison populations, she stalled the courts for years. She was so flagrant in her disregard for the law that they seriously considered holding her as Attorney General in her office in contempt of court. That means that your lawmakers or those that are meant to uphold the law, like an Attorney General, holding them in contempt of court is essentially saying that you lawmakers are actually the lawbreakers. That's how seriously they took that. People were actually passing away, dying in the prisons. And she was fighting to keep them there. And some of the reasons that she wanted to keep them there was so that they could use very cheap or free prison labor to fight fires. Literally, family, no embellishment. This is one of the reasons why she and the former governor were fighting to keep prisoners locked up, which is modern. So I want you to keep in mind, and I'm reading from this excerpt of this expose on her titled How Kamala Harris Fought to Keep Nonviolent Prisoners Locked Up from the American Prospect. I want you all to keep in mind something that's very interesting. It says here that the state appealed the district court's ruling, and on May 23rd, 2011, the Supreme Court found in Brown versus Plata that the California's prison system was in violation of its prisoners' Eighth Amendment rights. Despite its relatively conservative tilt, the court identified prisoner release as the most effective method for ending the state's constitutional violation in a timely manner. The verdict split 5-4. Listen to this part clearly and carefully. The verdict split 5-4 with conservative justice. Anthony Kennedy joining the court's liberals. So the side that more heavily deals with the Democrats or the liberals, you had a conservative justice that caused there to be a majority on the Supreme Court at that time, which is what made their rule effective and active. Justice Anthony Kennedy joining the court's liberals, upholding a lower court's mandate. Kennedy wrote the majority opinion in the case, including an array of gruesome details from inside those prisons and condemning the state for facilitating, quote, needless suffering and death. The piece goes on right after that and say, at that point, Kamala Harris had been the state's attorney general for X number of months. It says representing California as his top legal officer. And it goes on to talk about how when she was there, she continued to push that agenda and to stall the court's implementation. And later, guess what she actually suggested? After she was the attorney general for 4 to 6 months after this ruling was made, so she was fairly new in the position. She helped to fight years later to keep it in place. But guess what her suggestion was? After stalling the courts, she actually suggested increasing the percentage that the court said should be released. Please do your research, family. Why did I read that part? Because I wanted you all to see that when Joy Reid sits here and tells you, if you don't go with the other side, Black family, that you're going to look crazy and weird. It was a Republican, conservative-leaning justice that told your liberal attorney general that she and her office were assisting in needless death and suffering. Black family, our votes are for sale. We equally see the Republicans and the Democrats as anti-Black. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it, beloved. My name is Vicki Dillard. Be sure to comment below. I can't wait to hear from you. Check out my website at VickiPlanet.com for my products and services in my spiritual monthly school. That's VickiPlanet.com. That's VICKIPlanet.com. VICKIPlanet.com.